Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Brains Automation Destination. So in our exception handling series, we have so far covered try, catch and finally block. And in our last lecture, we discussed about usage of finally block. In case you haven't already looked into my previous videos, I request you to please go through them to get more understanding. Right, and today we are going to discuss about another important keywords in exception handling, that is throw and throws. Then we will be discussing on difference between throw and throws. We will be deep diving into understanding of throw and throws, right? So without further delay, let me jump onto the programming side. I am simply going to make it very simple before the use. So what I'm going to do, so this is one basic program wherein I have one main method and I am calling this test method, right? And if you look, I have created an object of file which is doing nothing but it is pointing to some file in the location, in the system location. So I have provided some path. Then what next I'm doing, I'm using file input stream object wherein I'm trying to read this particular file. So now if you see, we get one error where compiler is saying there is one checked exception. Checked means like compile time exception. If you want to understand what is compile time and runtime exception, you can go back to my previous video in the playlist. I have covered this topic as well. So if you observe now, like it is saying there is unhandled exception. So compiler is able to tell if there won't be a file at this location, you may get an exception, right? You won't be able to read this particular exception, but read this particular file. So this is where it says either surround it with try catch, handle this particular exception, or add the exception to the method signature. So as soon as we click on this add the exception to the method signature, we get throws file not found exception, right? So throws is another alternative to handle exceptions apart from try catch, but this is not that recommended, right? It is to temporarily bypass the exception from this method. So we were getting the exception at this particular method, we simply wrote throws file not found exception. Now this particular error will start appearing at the calling method. So this was the calling method, and you see we started getting the exception at this particular location. So herein also we need to follow the same steps. I'm going to add exception to method signature. So we have now added throws file not found exception at the main method level, right? So in this case what will happen, so this is the entry point, this was the entry point. And if like there is exception in real, if we don't have the exact path, then what will happen, we got the exception at this particular location, line number 12, it will throw the exception to the calling method, which is test method. If we, because this is not handled here also, so it is again passing it to main method, but main method does not have any handling mechanism, so it will pass on this exception to the runtime, or we can say JVM. And in this case what will happen, the exception will be thrown. So throws is another alternative of try catch block to handle the exception. So you see C path is some invalid path, and it is saying that there is no file no file at this particular specified location, right? So this is where we got exception. Now can we use throws with should we use throws for checked and unchecked exception? So that is not in the scope for current video. I'll be covering it in the interview question section, where we'll be discussing about do we really need throws for the checked and unchecked exception, or for which specific type of exception we need to use throws, right? But that is out of scope for current video. We'll be covering it in a separate video. So the next step is what is throw, right? So throws is to handle the exception. Now comes throw. So for example, I want to explicitly throw some exception, right? Let us say I want to say illegal argument exception, right? So here I simply need to type in my message sample exception, right? So in this case what will happen, because we have exception already here, I'm going to comment this part first, right? So throw is to throw an exception. So we already discussed in our previous session, as soon as exception occurs, we like an object of exception is created, right? That is being taken care internally when exception occur at real time, but there is sometime need where we need to explicitly throw exception, right? This kind of things we'll be using when we will create our own custom exceptions, right? So we will be covering that part when we will learn more about the custom exception. So throw is to explicitly throw the exception. So if we will run now, so what we will get, let us see, right? So we got illegal argument exception, and whatever the message we passed, sample exception. So to summarize it, throw is to throw the explicit exception, meaning exception that we want to intentionally throw to the system. We will get more understanding when we'll be learning about the custom exception in the next lecture, right? And throw is a keyword which is responsible for, sorry, throws is a keyword to bypass the exception, and it is an alternative of try catch block, right? So this is what we wanted to discuss in this particular session, and thank you for watching. And in case of any queries, please feel free to reach out to me via comments. So I'll request you to please like, share and subscribe my video. Thank you once again for watching.